cross those divides, or at least the ones that we can with physical distance mostly, and being able to still have an emotional connection and a human connection to other people. Like that's what everyone, in my opinion, that's what I think everyone really wants, is to be able to be like, oh, me too. Like, yes, that, like that feeling.
Frogland presents All Chill, No Shill, a podcast born out of the desire to hear more than elevator pitches. My name's Hazer, and I got a hell of a conversation for you today.
So did you grow up around horses?
I did. Yeah. I think I started riding when I was 4. And I took lessons until I was maybe 12. And then I got 2 horses for Christmas, 2 free horses, because you can't have just one. And when I was 14, I think. And one of them was a barely broke 3-year-old, which looking back makes me wonder if my parents maybe were trying to teach me a lesson or not. But he was perfect. I mean, he should have killed me many times over, and he did far better than that, and he kept me safe. And that kind of led me to going into a career with it. I got my degree in training horses and teaching lessons. So
nice. Do you think there's any parallels between horses and the NFT space? I mean, it's a bit of an abstract question, but
yeah,
it could have.
To say actually, yes, like surprisingly, a lot more than I expected. Because I kind of when I was brought in, Froggy Digital actually brought me in because he and I have been friends for quite a while, I think I said, and I'd been talking about how I wanted to get back into writing during the pandemic. And he was like, we've got this guy from Hollywood. Like, you just got to meet him. He's gonna be so great. Like, he's gonna really help you. Like, give you, like, you'll learn so much from him. It'll be awesome. He's like, you'll just be a part-time mod. Just be like his writer's assistant. Like, it's gonna be great. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. And so I got started doing that. And obviously, I kind of moved relatively quickly from writer's assistant and part-time mod to co-founder and community manager and producer. But the really shocking thing that is it's the only reason that I can figure out as to why I've done okay with this is that we're training horses, and just to some extent figuring out how to talk to the people riding the horses, especially when they're scared. If you can find their motivations behind whatever it is they're doing, horse or rider, whether the horse is spooking or trying to like really pull on you or get really strong or bolt or do whatever, if you can figure out why they're doing that and what their motivations are, it's a lot easier to have a conversation with them about what they should be doing instead of running away.
Yeah.
And like the same with people, like if you understand why they're terrified of cantering or of jumping or of doing whatever, it's a lot easier to talk them through that. And so I kind of feel like with the community management and with this space, like everyone's here and we're all like a little sorry. As long as you can continue to talk to people, but without promising things that are unattainable or unachievable, it's a lot easier to actually make something really big happen. That if you would approach them, like if you'd said, okay, hey, like today, first lesson, you're going to jump a 4-foot fence. They're going to be straight out of there. Like, you're never going to see them again. And it's kind of the same way. Like if we'd walked into the Discord the first day and been like, okay, guys, we're going to start a revolution, and we're going to redo how society and everything thinks about the world and thinks about politics and the economy, and just like start everything over, everyone would have bounced straight out. And I would not have
I would have been here for it.
Okay, we would have had like 12
we would have had just 12 of the craziest frogs ever.
Exactly. And it would have still been amazing. I feel certain of it. We would have definitely still been there and incredible.
It definitely would have ended up in some kind of cult. Yes, small community.
Absolutely.
Either that or we'd all be too strong-willed and stubborn to ever like
Yeah.
Find a place to meet in the middle. I mean,
Exactly.
I definitely think you took a lot of edge off of me. I've learned so much just like by watching different people in the Discord, which has been a really cool part. Cause like I was excited for the side of community. Cause when we got into it, like we're like middle of the pandemic. Yeah, it was super cool. I mean, it definitely provided me with something. I mean, it's community, but like I feel like that's become like such a kind of a buzzword or whatever. And I
Yeah.
feel like that's maybe it only feels like a buzzword to me because I feel like I have an example to look at that's like actually doing it right. So everything else feels so hollow, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Say I
No
always
shade, but
just say I always feel just a little bit like dirty when I tweet and I like hashtag community. And I'm like, I feel like I shouldn't be dropping this buzzword, but also like we have an awesome community, so I should be dropping it.
yeah, I was going to say also on the side of maybe, alluding to imposter syndrome and how we're all human, I would say that if I've learned anything from this, until a year ago, nobody had done an animation NFT or, a lot of that. So it's not even a space where it's like everybody is going to be, struggling in some way, shape, or form with similar, feelings. You're a training expert, which when I come down to it, it's we've talked about in these conversations how the components that you have to learn to do the thing are really what transfers each time you move from one project to the next or even from one skill set to the next. So like
Yeah.
the things that you knew and learned, like you touched on people there, and instantly I was like, oh yeah, that was something that I always struggled with in photography.
Mhm.
I have a very hard time of being anything but like I wear my emotions on my sleeve. I am either there or if I'm like behind the camera, I'm like deadpan. There's no
Yeah.
emotion. It's not intentional. It's just like I'm so lost in my own thoughts and like the technical side that trying to be the photographer that's like, okay, everybody get in this row and do this thing now, smile. It just is
Yeah.
like it pulls me so much out of the photo that it just is like, yeah, I avoid it at all costs. I'm like, I would rather have a snowmobile hurtling towards my body through
Yeah.
space than like get a group of people at a wedding together to like smile and
Yeah.
take a family photo.
Yeah. That was my exact same experience too. Like I had to in college we had to take classes in how to teach people, and that was my hardest course for sure because I don't like speaking in public. I don't like dealing with humans, which is why I took a horse training job, and here I am as as a human manager.
You're our
Um,
frog manager.
yes, there we go. That's exactly it.
Oddly
Uh,
human, slightly human,
yeah, pretending
just
to be.
sort of human.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's like because I was like people always thought I was a bitch in like high school and junior high, and I mean I even had that still when I was still young in my professional horse career because I would if I was riding I'm just straight up deadpan, and if someone like talks to me and I hadn't like kind of prepped to receive them and talk back to them like a human, it was like startling, and I was always like, what? Deadpan, like nothing, like there's emotions. And so I had to kind of like train myself too to be like, okay, like when there are humans, when you are not only alone in a silent, quiet little room, you have to like smile and you have to be ready to kind of explain things and kind of always in like teacher mode a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been something that's really um, help kind of explain to other people like how to be a community manager and how to deal with people, especially if they're being a little tricky or problematic. Because like you always have to come in almost like it's their first day on earth being a human, and you just have to explain why like nope, like that's not a nice thing to do. Like we don't treat people like that.
Wag of the finger. No, not in our discourse.
Exactly.
I think that what you just touched on is probably so with bugs, I think is past the point of masking.
Uh-huh.
So like I have severe ADHD. So if I'm appearing to be a normal person, it's 100% like me being lucky that my mask is working because like
Yeah, well,
mine's not so good. And sometimes I walk out of the house without putting it on.
Yeah.
So this has been a cool format to talk because it's not really, I'm like, oh, well, I'm out here.
Yeah. Yes, definitely.
What does Lollihops as a human want to have more of in her life as a frog? Just think about it like you're writing. It's just verbal off the top.
Verbal word vomit.
Yeah.
Um,
I just swim in it.
Yeah. That's a better way to be, trust me, rather than all left in here.
Oh, I seriously, I talked with Bugs too. I was like, I met my wife. Like I had the word vomit side, but then it was like all regret and all like just in my head so often. And then I finally, like, I met Carrie and I was like, oh my God, a relationship with a human being doesn't have to be this like
Stressful.
Loud all the time. It's not that they're loud. It's just like, oh yeah, I've got to stop having like looping thoughts continually in the back of my head. That's probably why I work with things with my hands now, because it lets some of that stuff go.
And I think that was the only reason why I could process and why I could do like horse training, because I always knew I was like, because I liked studying because it was something to hyper focus on.
Mm-hmm.
But I always knew that like my job was going to have to be something outside, moving, doing things, being very physical, because I was not going to be happy otherwise. And being able to kind of transition into this where I'm like, oh, I don't need to have like 7 horses going around the arena and me sitting on one that's trying to buck me off to be able to like have enough stimuli so like my brain gets quiet. I can actually do other things, like all of the Discord pings, like someone's like got me a message, and I can kind of chase all of that down as a way to kind of help keep my own self balanced a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So the producer title is something that's one that I kind of keep leaning against a little bit.
Okay.
And not because I don't know. It's
leaning against in a positive, or leaning like pushing it away, or like leaning towards being that? Both.
Because like I like that. I like that title. I think that's something that makes a lot of sense looking back on my own history, where I'm like, oh, okay, like that's why I like doing it. That's why I like finding out what makes people feel certain ways and how to create, like in horse training, like all I try to do in all of my lessons is to explain how I got a certain feeling on a horse, whether that was putting them in the right place or getting the right feeling over a jump or whatever, and then creating a situation that replicated that for the student and for the horse. And kind of when Bugs was like, he was like, no, like you're a producer, like you're our producer, like you are Frogland's producer. And I was like, I don't like, that sounds like so much lying to myself and everyone. Like, I don't know about that, you guys. And he's been pushing me in a positive way, that direction too, because like one of the stories that he told me very early on was that he was in Disney, and I guess there was a janitor there who was just kind of, I mean, he'd been there for, I think Bugs had said, many years. And one day he was just hanging out on set late one night and offered the right someone, whoever that was, a suggestion. And then he ended up being a producer. And he said some people just have what in showbiz they call the purple haze. And apparently he said there are some people that like, they are just meant to produce. They are meant to pull all the strings and to be all the glue and be everything that holds something together and gets the project out there and gets the show out and creates whatever emotion the artist was trying to replicate in the audience. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I kind of lean against it, because it does again feel to myself at least like I'm faking that somehow, but that's also what I'm like. That's
definitely an us talking to ourselves thing. I like to go back to if you do the thing, you are the thing, and you are definitely doing the thing. So in the terms of that, yeah, I think production, I don't even, and that's the thing too, is I don't think, because like my wife doesn't realize it, and I even forget it sometimes, but like people don't know what like a PI is in science. It's not a
Okay.
private investigator, it's principal investigator. But it also, like, even saying that, it doesn't give you a reference point.
Yeah.
I think so much of film, and especially like in the Hollywood setting, it is like on the independent side, it scares the shit out of me because I'm like, yeah, I don't think that I have a place on a set. I don't know if you're saying that you have ADHD as well, but
Yes,
okay.
definitely.
So I think that there's a lot of people in the space that do. My wife
Yeah.
kind of always jokes that I'm like, you think everybody has it. I'm like, no, just the people I get along with.
Yes, correct.
But yeah, so much of that I feel like is in this space. And I definitely feel like there's the camps of it. Like even in our little group, like Jack is just hardcore hyper focus. He will figure out a system and like
Yep.
rip it to shreds, figure it out, and like figure out every way to do it the best. I
Yeah.
will figure it out for like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And then I will get popped out. Everybody will get ahead of me. And I'll be like, I don't think I can even catch up at this point.
Yeah.
So I end up like jumping to the next thing to kind of get my head wrapped around.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that like in a weird way, I feel like you're the best of both of those. Like you are the broad generalist, but you're also
Definitely. Yeah. I had been, I mean, I think as probably has happened to a bunch of people, when COVID and quarantine hit, I actually ended up going to therapy because I've always been a little like weird in my headspace about things. Like we thought it was depression in like high school and junior high, but those meds those meds definitely did not help.
they didn't help me either.
Yeah.
My ADD meds were like, that was my first diagnosis. They tried to diagnose me with depression and give me that. And yeah, I was like, this is not helpful.
No. Yeah. And that was my same thing too. And so I was just like, okay, I guess everyone's just like sad like this sometimes, not always, just sometimes. And that people just deal with it better. And so I went in quarantine because I was seeing people less often, and my previous work environment was not going particularly well for me. And so
the horses were complaining too much.
Oh, the horses were fine. The horses and the clients were fine. So I decided I just needed a third party to talk to and figure out if I was crazy or if it was something that I just needed to learn how to deal with better. And so that was actually when I got my ADHD diagnosis, was just June of last year.
Oh, so you got an adult. So, all right. So when you get it as an adult, so like I grew up in a small town, kids in a small town, but they do not have problems.
Nope.
So yeah, mine was like 23 or 24 or whatever. And it just was like mind blowing because for the first time, I was like, okay, I feel like I can do the things that normal people do.
Yes. Yeah. And that was a huge part of it. Cause it was quarantine. So I was on TikTok and I was like, wow, all these people, they're so similar to me. And then I started saying ADHD tag and I was like, oh, interesting.
ADHD TikTok got real there for a bit.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah.
The way I look at it is it's not like it fixes your focus meter. It just kind of shifts your focus meter. So like, and I feel like people think it's like a magic bullet, like, oh, I'll be able to like do all the things I don't want to do. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
No, I still struggle with all of the same like tasks that I did before. It's just that like, if I do all the prep and I spend the time like forcing myself to get there and to face that hard task, I can get through it.
Yeah. But I was kind of worried that it was going to like that was the only thing keeping me attentive enough to like the community and to Discord and everything going on. That was going to be, if I was off of it, then like I was going to be a failure at my job. Yeah. And it it was actually really cool that like I was definitely less effective. Like I am still playing a little bit of catch up this week. So I was definitely less effective, but it wasn't that like I woke up every day and I was like, ah, crap, Frogland. I was still like, yes, Frogland. And I was just really shitty about like staying on one train of thought and doing any one particular thing.
Yeah.
And so now kind of looking back at like the horse world and where I came from there, I kind of wonder if I almost like pushed I love riding horses. I love competing and doing all of that, but I wonder if I pushed myself into that high stress, high danger, because I mean, horses you never know what they're going to do, but like have to be focused all the time. So that way I was kind of like using my environment and my job to like self-medicate almost. Like,
oh yeah. So I like to look at it. There's that comment of I thrive in chaos, so I create it.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. I 100% can relate with you there. I mean, like I said, snowmobiles flying at me, extreme sports, concerts. Like when I look at what I liked to do in photography, it wasn't until like my later 20s that I started enjoying landscapes. To your point, it's got to be like, you got to be kind of part of the chaos to understand the chaos. And at least for me, I just don't think that I could be like an outside observer. And that's probably what I struggle with a lot of other projects, is like being part of being in a Discord in a project that I'm not in. I'm just like, went into a couple Discords, they were super weird. And it was like, this doesn't feel like Frogland. And I was like, no, I think I'm going to hop back to the pond and just go as deep as I can in one community. Yeah. And I know that there's more creators and stuff out there that are going to be looking for those like projects you can go deep into.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Hopefully they won't be Facebook.
Oh God. Yeah.
We'll entice you with a nice small amount of money up front and take your money the rest of your life.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Your money and everything else that we possibly can.
We're going to train our AI models on your artwork that we own, and then we won't need you anymore.
Yep. We will just have all of those little like floating torsos that will represent you, but you will just be locked away in your little matrix battery cell.
You think you're logged off.
Yeah.
But we can't have it seeming like you're not here.
Oh yeah. You have to be active.
I'm very glad I'm building sculptures. Like I'm really glad I switched from 2D digital work to something that has a physical like manifestation. Even if it's just to accompany it, because I think it's going to be really interesting and I don't think it's that far out when like you're truly not going to be able to tell what's computer generated and what isn't. And I, for the last 10 years, 50, whatever, totally was in the camp of like, yeah, they're going to have manufacturing figured out. They're going to have X, Y, and Z figured out. They're not going to be able to figure out, like, creativity is going to be the last job that's like no longer needed.
Yeah.
And I didn't account for the fact that manufacturing doesn't put a whole lot of data online to look through.
Yep. So my take on that, this was part of the manifesto that we actually ended up cutting because it started to spawn a new article. So it wasn't that it was like,
I know the feeling.
Yeah. It wasn't quite right for the setting. But on that topic, on the AI and like GAN artwork topic, I think it's going to put us all in a really interesting place when we get to that point where it's going to be really hard to tell what's AI generated and what's not. Because I think a lot of what humanity has been moving towards for a long time is like perfecting everything, right? Like we Photoshop people and we make sure that like we cover all of our pores and like we fix all of our lines so they're all dead perfectly straight. And I think when we get to the point where you're not going to be able to tell what's a human made image and what's not, or artwork in any form, I think it's going to start to push forward the importance of not being perfect, and like those flaws that make us human and the flaws that show up in pieces of art, whether they're digital film, written, whatever. all those the little flaws you can tell, like when an artist is painting and the brush slips because they're so taken over by whatever emotion that is, like that little blip, that little piece of dissonance in the music, that's going to be what lets us know that it's human and it's not AI. And that emotion being able to reach out across, I mean, even from stuff like way back when, like there's a reason that all that stuff is still really relevant. And it's not because it's picture perfect beautiful. It's because you can see and you can feel that emotion from back then. And I think part of what this space and what we're trying to embody in the project as well is that feeling of human connection, across physical distance, across emotional distance, whether that's from being separated because someone's died or whatever. I mean, there are all these different boundaries that we have in the world with language, with politics, with physical distance, anything, time. Being able to cross those divides, or at least the ones that we can with physical distance mostly, and being able to still have an emotional connection and a human connection to other people. Like that's what everyone, in my opinion, that's what I think everyone really wants, is to be able to be like, oh, me too. Like, yes, that, like that feeling. And I think that that's going to be what separates, if we can, in this NFT, in this crypto space, if we can keep that authenticity and not create more walls and let it get siloed again, kind of like corporate America, or I mean, corporations have, the same way that politics has, and the same way that boundary lines between countries and everything. If we can keep those walls down and keep letting that human connection grow, I think that's going to be what really moves us forward and lets us evolve and lets us change and let the tech do its thing, making things perfect, and then let the humans continue to be flawed, but be flawed in different and better ways, I suppose.
It may draw to the side of, like you're saying, maybe the pinnacle of perfect is subjective, and maybe the human condition is subjective.
Yeah.
And as much as I want robot limbs, but I'll say that maybe there is not an objective pinnacle to human evolution or whatever. I mean, connection's fucking hard. Like it's probably always going to be hard. It's easier when you're drunk. Like drunk people are like stoked as hell on everything.
Yes.
we could use more drunk stoke in the world.
Yes, I agree. And that's actually probably a very good like little defining key phrase for like the NFT, like all NFT conferences. Everyone is drunk stoked, even if they're not drunk yet. You
don't have any nicknames in the Discord, do you?
Leaky Lolly.
what would that be from? For those that don't know.
Yes, leaky Lolly for all of the alpha leaks that I like to slip out sometimes, obviously, and sometimes not.
What cracks me up was, I believe it was an intentional leak that got you the name, correct?
Yes, definitely.
Did the people like? So I guess the ironic part I find in that is, I don't think that the group knew, the group that like, because I wasn't there for that one. I know it was Frogface and maybe a couple others. Yeah. They didn't know it was an intentional leak, did they?
I don't believe so. I might have told them after the fact, but I definitely did not tell them before it.
So you just got to get your shit kickers on.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, I've got 2 minutes. I think I can tell you this one. I asked my dad, when did I just stop wanting to be a cowboy? Because like, I'm dressed head to foot in cowboy gear. I believe by around 4, my routine was like, we'd go feed the horses. I'd climb up on the stall and then I'd get on my horse, like bareback. Nice. One night he spooked and just took off through the field. So full canter, like at like kid age, got thrown into the field. Still wanted to be a cowboy. And then, so my dad, basically he was like, well, I made a deal with you. Like, you had to get good enough to rope and tie off a steer in a roping. and then you could choose whether you wanted to do it or not.
Okay.
And so did that, practiced, got good at it.
Yeah.
We took second at the roping.
Nice.
And he was stoked, thought, oh, he'll win some, like, he's going to win this. He's going to get some money. He's going to like, this is going to, he's going to, be hooked. And I apparently walked back to him. And I think I was 13 or 14, I guess. Walked back to him and was like, all right, I'm done roping. I still had to do all the chores, but like, I was like, nope, if I get on the horse, then the next thing is like, you want to come to a roping? And then nope.
Yeah.
It's going to start all over again.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But then we got into snowmobiling, so it worked out.
Yes. Another good adrenaline activity.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I will let you go. We're looking like right at 2-year time. So thank you for chatting.
Frogland presents All Chill, No Shill, a podcast born out of the desire to hear more than elevator pitches. My name's Hazer, and I got a hell of a conversation for you today.